Welcome to our SGA podcast. How's it going, guys? I'm Forrest.
Awesome.
Good. I'm Forrest, your SAC representative.
I'm Kylie, your SGA president.
Hey everyone, I'm Aiden, your SGA vice president.
And with us today, we have our guests Matt Stilwell and Kate Cope talking about what it's like to be a teacher. So, yeah. What's up, guys? How's your day been so far? We'll just start off with the easy stuff.
Go ahead, Kate.
Thanks. It's been going all right. It's a busy day. We're in the part of the semester where things get intense.
No, I'm having super fun this morning. Like Aiden and I were talking earlier, I'm engaging in some productive procrastination right now. So rather than commenting on student essays, I'm hanging out with SGA, dropping it like it's hot.
Awesome. We're happy to have you here. I guess we just wanted to kind of get your perspective on the whole school environment, what it's like for instructors, for teachers, on the other side of the coin, maybe stuff that we aren't aware of.
Matt, do you want to start?
But please, Kate, stop me anytime because you know how I get rolling, and then it's tough to stop me. But hey, I want to thank Forrest, Aiden, and Kylie for having us here today. I always enjoy, as an instructor, an opportunity to hang out with students in environments outside of the classroom. So that's one of the ways I would start this conversation. It's great being in classrooms. I love being in classrooms because I get to be just an advanced adolescent, and I learn as much from students in my classes as I would hope that students learn from me. And so I also, though, like to meet with students outside the classroom because, Forrest, as you're asking the question, we learn that we're all real humans in a world with real emotions, right? And it doesn't have to be syllabi and course schedules and points and grades and percentages. So what I like about the classroom environment is if we can remove some of those extrinsic motivators and extrinsic factors like grades and judgment, then it creates a much more functional relationship between teachers and students, and that's what I try to do in my classes.
All right.
I think that's something that a community college like Front Range, in particular Front Range, works pretty hard at creating that community because there's this old method or understanding of this hierarchy within academia, and it's so much easier to learn, I think, as you break that down. And the people I think who are the most successful in school, whether you're an instructor, whether you're a student, or any part of our community, is when we keep those relationships going and find ways that we inspire each other and continue that passion. So I like to meet with students. I encourage people to meet outside, which has gotten a lot harder during the pandemic, that's for sure. But if anything, it's more important now. They're just the anxiety of like walking into your teacher's classroom or your teacher's office, or like trying to find her office, or feeling like you have I have stupid questions or something like that, where like most people are ready just to be there and say, let's learn together. You have fascinating things to say. I have fascinating things to say. My cat has fascinating things to say. And we just go from there.
Totally. And I guess kind of just from the student side, like I have taken up some office hours for my instructors this year. One in particular, Beth Hale, who teaches Intro to Psych, she has a therapy practice out of Longmont, and so I just wanted to like learn more about what all of that is, and like not even like really relating to school, but we just had like a great conversation, and have built like a better relationship in that regard. And I think that's awesome, because everybody thinks that office hours is, I feel like they just think it's like asking about like homework and stuff like that. It's not necessarily the case. You can just go to chill,
that was one of the best ways I connected to my mentors in college, was just hanging out, asking questions, because we're in a community of learning, and in the sense that, hey, I want to know this person as a person, and say, well, what did they do that was successful, or what did they think about this? I have a lot of students, so I teach political science. So usually around election time, or even when there are a series of wild events, of which there have been no shortage. People are like, I just don't understand what's going on. And I'm happy to have that conversation to say, here's some information you can read, but really, I want to know what you think about this, because this has obviously grabbed your attention some way. And I love those conversations to say, what do you think? It's the idea of having so many different viewpoints is invigorating at times.
Yeah, and it's messy too. And I think we have this, two things. I'll get to your question or your comment in a minute, Forrest. But there's this myth surrounding education that it happens the first time and it should look effortless and it should be easy, when in fact we should be embracing the mess. Ramsey Musalam has a book and a TED Talk, and he only has 3 rules that spark learning, and I've incorporated those rules into all of my classes. Number 1, curiosity comes first. We shouldn't be looking for answers, we should be asking questions, and that's kind of what Kate was referring to there. Like, we should feel free to be curious and not worry about the grade. Then, once we get curious and have some questions, then we embrace the mess, because learning is messy. We all have different skills and abilities that we bring into every classroom that help us be more successful more quickly in some classrooms, and we don't progress as quickly as we might want to in other classes. So we have to cut ourselves some slack and embrace the mess. And then finally, one of the things that we don't spend, in my estimation, enough time doing in enough classrooms is leaving time for reflection on the learning process. So we should have an opportunity, once we've done the work, right? We got to do the work, but once we've gotten curious, gotten messy, then we need to reflect on the learning that happened in a unit or on a particular assignment or in a task. And so one of the things I force students to do, I hate to use the language of coercion as a teacher, but one of the things I force students to do in all my classes is meet with me 3 times a semester. After each of our units, students have to, it's part of our learning outcomes for the semester. So we check in, we talk about how that unit went, talk about what they learned, and then we also update the grade book to reflect where their learning is at after that particular unit. Because I don't use points or percentages or letter grades in my classes. I use a learning contract. So the grade book is based on whether or not you need improvement, whether or not you're on contract, or whether or not you're exceeding the contract. And so our focus is on the learning, not the grade. And it's also a conversation that we have for 15 weeks at 3 different points in the semester.
That's awesome. Yeah, mic drop.
I have to cut in. I was just wondering, Matt, are you just scheduling individual Zoom sessions now for your individual meetings?
Yeah, so
virtually?
Yeah. You know, again, we're all experiencing the same challenges as students and as teachers right now. This is a very alienating time and a very alienating experience when we're used to being in classrooms. Because Kylie, we've been in the classroom together before, and you know how I roll. I'm a classroom teacher, right? I blew out one microphone in a computer already because I can't even use my inside voice when, I'm using technology. However, there are some benefits to learning in a real-time remote or a digital or virtual environment. And what I'm considering doing moving forward is offering students the option to meet with me digitally, even when we go back to the classrooms for our 3 conferences. If a student can't make it to class or they're not coming to campus that day, I'm going to offer students the option to meet through WebEx or Zoom. And I think that's actually an improvement because we still get to have the conversation and it might fit better into our schedules.
There are a lot of flexibilities in things that we have been able to move over, if you will, from the purely online. There have been some hybrid classes in different settings. Sometimes the sciences have had a little bit more hybrid experience. But typically, like having fully online, completely asynchronous, so you can kind of do things at your pace, and meeting in between from that classroom experience, real-time remote really has opened a lot of doors. It has required a lot of learning for everybody, like learning what Zoom fatigue is, and that staring at the screen is very difficult. To see yourself on the screen, to have to look for those visual cues that you usually have, like Matt and I both dance around the room, right? And it's a little bit easier to pay attention to us. You can take in information in different ways than just visual and audio, assuming that those are working well. And I think in the same way that the students have been learning, we've all been learning. For the last year, we have been going through incredible trainings, like trying to stay a little bit ahead of the curve, like learning about all the different video technologies, learning how to set things up in our rooms so we have light and have good audio and things like that. Like there's technical things that everybody still struggles with. I put myself on mute and then I forget to unmute all the time. And one thing I enjoy, if I go to other conferences or other classrooms virtually, when the slides don't work or something technical goes wrong, it makes me feel so human. Because I know I do that enough. And it's jarring if you are the one trying to do this, whether you're a student doing a presentation or you're like trying to do something technical in any sort of Zoom setting. So it's been a really interesting learning curve, but that is learning on top of what you're learning in the class, right? So this is quite a heavy burden for everybody to take on.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
I would say too, I would just add on to what Kate is saying is like sometimes the most important lessons that we learn in a semester have nothing to do with, for students, the content, and for teachers, the curriculum, but have to do with what's happening outside the classroom. And I understand the frustrations and anxieties that students have been experiencing, expecting to be learning in a residential classroom environment and having to learn online. However, what I'm trying to help students in my classes see is that you're getting 30% smarter just by taking real-time remote classes, because you're juggling both the curriculum and the content and the assignments and the modality in which those courses are being taught. And we can learn in any way that it's possible to learn, right? I mean, people are familiar with learning theory and they're visual and, auditory learners and kinesthetic learners, but we wouldn't be at the top of the food chain if we couldn't learn in every possible way there is to learn and adapt to certain situations. So if I had a message for students in classrooms, not just in the last year, but moving forward, is that sometimes what you're learning is that I can learn in different ways and continue to be successful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We also learn a lot of skills that you will need, like just practicing. Like one of the things that I emphasize in my class is trying to figure out time management. This is a struggle for everybody. I still struggle with it on a regular basis, even more so when the structure of like going someplace, doing things, coming home is kind of falling apart. So I think people need to recognize how much like credit you should give yourself and how much slack, if you're really struggling, that you're perhaps not accounting for all of the things that you're doing, and that all of them will help you move forward. It's a good point, Matt.
Indeed, very wise words from, both of you. And as one will commonly say, to kind of move us on here, with a great mind comes another great person. And SGA is looking to understand, who made you you today? Who were your mentors in the past? If either one of you want to follow up.
I don't know if I'm the best one to answer this question, because I'm sort of transgressive of the norm in a lot of ways. I didn't have many close mentors, but it was particularly through my undergraduate education. I was sort of a lone wolf. I was even more of a lone wolf when I got to graduate school. And I know this isn't the message that you want to be sending folks, but that's the time when I finally realized the importance of mentorship, and having professors who were guiding me through the process, not just intellectually or through the curriculum, but just as a person in the university. And we have had other mentoring opportunities. I have mentored more than I have been mentored. And maybe I've done that because I didn't ever have that experience for myself. But Aiden, as you say, like the mentoring relationship, that's a thing that you can learn outside the classroom that's going to be helpful for you with curriculums and courses inside the classroom. As Kate said earlier, establishing those relationships between, it could be a faculty member, it could be student affairs, wherever you're connected, the more of those connections you can make, it's going to help you feel more comfortable and be more successful in the classroom.
When I think about the mentors I've had, again, I was really shy and had a really hard time. It took me a while to figure out how to approach professors. And in undergrad, I was actually a transfer student. So I moved from one to another school, and I found the people who were, I found some professors who were very helpful, but I also found that my cohort, my group, my pod were very important, because I got to see them going in different directions and they would start to explore. And that kind of helped me to give a better sense of where things could go and how they were succeeding or how they weren't, right? Because it is a trial and error and we're all figuring this out. So having that understanding and that we're all trying to do something and we can all support each other in that process. When I got to grad school, I did find a couple other mentors who, honestly, they were very helpful in terms of like the content and considering careers and things like that. But it was really finding someone who could say, I know what you're going through. This is very helpful. Like, you can do this. These are things that you might consider, or again, kind of opening up that field of vision. And I also found that when I started looking around, it didn't need to just come from academia. I understand that I have a lot of privilege in the sense that I am a white woman who has a long generation of people who have been to college. But at the same time, like in my context, it was very much, it's just an expectation that you go. There wasn't really, you still have to make of it what you want, but that wasn't a lot of excellent direction. So I still found that after that, it was really finding what people got out of college and asking them what they wanted, like what they found, and realizing that that kind of gave me permission to look more at what I wanted. And one of the best things that someone told me is it doesn't matter what topic. It makes it easier if you pick something that you're good at, but you really just need to enjoy it and be thrilled by it. Right? This is kind of a different philosophy than perhaps previous of like, you need to be the best at something, and there's nothing wrong with being the best at something, but it's very much, we need to be willing to sit in this, what you prepare yourself for. You need to be ready to sit in your life with that experience. And that doesn't have to be your only experience, but recognize that you have the ability to shape where you're going. And there are a lot of people in your community and especially at Front Range, we're all here to like try to help you achieve what your goals are and to help you be successful. And I think that's one thing that's really great about our college is that we do have those supports put in, and really that you can ask anyone. You can ask anyone about their journey and they will be happy to share.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, and so in depth too. Yeah, and I know that you do have to head out here pretty soon, so yeah, but I really appreciate that insight that you've kind of put into the mix there, because I do feel like sometimes that you don't necessarily feel that way on the student side right away, especially, you know, on these undergrad classes and things like that. So it's really nice to hear that there is the opportunity, and I've experienced that in abundance with like our advisors at the student life office and with other professors as well. So
I really appreciate you guys. I think you're doing a great job, and these are really important questions that we should continue to ask this. And I think if you ask different people, they'll give you different answers, which may reach to different people. So as Matt said, curiosity and asking questions are really going to be a great path. So if you guys or whoever is listening to this podcast wants to reach out, I'm sure you guys can find me, or you can put information down below. But thank you, Forrest, Aiden, Kylie. Really appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Thanks so much for coming, Kate.
thank you.
Thanks, Matt. I'll see you later too.
Yeah, Kate, drive it like you stole it.
Always. Bye, guys.
Bye. So I guess there's just one other question on the docket, or something along those lines. So we kind of, when we were brainstorming these, it was kind of like a joke, but how do we get on your good side? I don't know. That was basically the question. I'm sure
Okay.
it can be phrased a little bit better, but
Right. How can students ingratiate themselves to their instructors in order to both learn the curriculum and get good grades?
yeah, that was actually our second option. We just went with the first one for some reason.
Well, look, one of the challenges as a student is you, depending on how many classes you're taking, you are adjusting not only to the content and curriculum of those classes, you are also adjusting to different instructor personalities and different instructor approaches to the curriculum in the classroom environment, right? And so that's a huge challenge for students, which makes this question a much more difficult question than you might imagine, right? It's a fairly simple question. How do we get on the good side of our instructors? But all instructors have a different good side to get on, right? A wise person can learn more from a foolish question than a fool can learn from a wise answer. And so when you look, and that was the Bruce Lee swerve going on there. I'll give attribution to my sources, but it probably came from ancient Buddhist or Zen philosophy. Anyway, one of the challenges and one of the ways you get 30% smarter in your classes is figuring out what the instructor wants. And from my point of view, this is a good thing and a bad thing, right? Because I don't want students in my classes just to please me. As Kate said, I think before she left, I want people to be curious. I want people to have fun. I want you to do it. I want students to do it because they want to do it, not because they're trying to figure me out and try to please me, right? And so on the one hand, I don't want students to have to get on my good side, but I do want students to do the work. In my classes, it's just about doing the work and have fun doing the work and be responsible for your own learning, but also be responsible for the learning of your classmates. Because just as teachers have personalities, classes develop personalities. So from an instructor point of view, when I see my classes, I prepare as much for a certain classroom dynamic as I do for just teaching the material. And so I also have to adjust to different classroom dynamics because classrooms bond in different ways, right? And so maybe part of the fun and the challenge of school, and we don't always see it that way, it becomes stressful when you're trying to figure out what your instructor wants and how to get on their good side. But if you just flip that around and see it as a challenge and part of the fun of learning, it doesn't just seem like the teacher is an authoritarian and, you know, speaking truth all the time and just trying to make me jump through certain hoops. You're learning how to operate in different environments with different expectations based on personality, which is life. Right?
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a really thoughtful answer to the question, to a rather kind of, base question on the face of it. But yeah. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, especially, because the classroom dynamic is going to be different when we go back in person too. Once again, it's going to be something that we'll have to adjust to for sure. But and even in my own experience, right? And we've all had those instructors or professors that, they knew their material. They were really good experts in their fields, but not great teachers, right? And that's one of the most difficult environments to habituate yourself to figure out what the instructor wants, because we can't be experts in a 15-week semester. I think about this a lot. I wasn't an expert, even though I have the degrees as an undergraduate. After I, finished graduate school, I still wasn't an expert. I didn't become an expert until I went to the other side of the desk, right? And became an instructor. And again, I think another one of the myths of education is that once we've gotten the grade or finished the semester, then we have the learning. But we have the whole rest of our lives to apply that learning, and we're going to continue to just get better at it. The learning's never done, right? But figuring out a particular instructor then translates at some point into figuring out, what does my boss want? What is, like, when you get the trophy job, whatever your trophy job is, at some point, your boss isn't going to give you a syllabus and a course schedule. You're going to have a job description, and they're going to cut you loose and go do it. And, the only time you'll hear anything is if you're doing it wrong, right? Or if you've made a mistake, or if you want to argue for a promotion or a raise, right? And so the skills that you're built, don't wait. Actually, this is one of the biggest pieces of advice I ever got. Don't wait to get a job to start on the job training. What you're doing in your classrooms is on the job training. Learning how to deal with difficult personalities, both among your peers and your instructors, is a skill that's going to serve you well once you have the piece of paper that says you can go get a job somewhere. So don't think of the classes that you're taking and your degree in the short term. Think about it in the long term. It's not so much whether or not you took a certain class or got a certain grade. It's about what you learned in the process of taking that class. And again, as I've said, sometimes the most important lessons we learn have nothing to do with the curriculum or the content of the course. They have to do with the way we went about doing it. Yeah, that's some awesome, just practical life advice to kind of wrap up the podcast. I appreciate you kind of sharing that. It's a nice little bow at the end of it, for sure. Yeah.
I love bows.
Yeah, very ornamental. No, but that is really nice to hear, because that is like a big part of, really actually finding your career. So you do have to make sure that you get along with your boss and everything like that. That's kind of like the ultimate thing, I feel like, for the most part. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming, Mr. Stilwell. This has been awesome. And we hope to talk to you again soon in person.
Yeah. Forrest, Aiden, Kylie.
Yep.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate you reaching out, and don't be strangers. If you need anything, let me know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Kylie, anytime.
Impeccable advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, right on. Thanks.
All right.